Welcome to Hawthorne Hill Farm. My name is Marilyn Cameron. I'm a farmer and a retired veterinarian, and my husband Paul, who also works on the farm, still works as a pharmacist. Together, we operate a small market garden farm and attend a weekly market in the Annapolis Valley of Nova Scotia. We raise a flock of Shetland sheep for wool and care for lots and lots of free-range hens. We have meat birds in the summer too. Clarabelle and Thule is our family milk cow and her calf. We hope you will join us to see what we do on our farm. From our morning chores in the barn to tending one of our many gardens, harvesting and preserving and preparing the ingredients that are grown on our farm. Over the years, we've learned so much on being more self-reliant. Although we've made lots of mistakes, we've got lots of help too from watching other YouTube homesteaders. So if we can help you to be more self-sustaining, then our goals will be achieved. Thanks for watching. The garlic is almost finished being trimmed. We've got our last stack here, really nice big ones. Then I just pick up a handful and I'll put them on my lap like this in a box, half box or a tray, an old tray. And the best thing to use would be some pruning shears. Sharpen them really well before you get started. And then you want to cut them straight across. And the reason why you want to cut them straight across is so straight across is because they don't form a point. If you're doing angles, you can see that there's a point on this. And when they're sitting next to each other in the tray, that point can rupture the paper of its neighbor. It's less likely to do it if they're flat on top. So this, cutting it on an angle, can actually damage the look of the neighboring garlic. So you want to cut across. You can cut long stems or short stems. You should leave at least 1.5 centimeters. You don't want to be getting into the tops of your cloves. And you can leave long ones if you want. I prefer just to leave sort of moderate ones. It's the look of the garlic that I like. Then you take these roots, and I use scissors to trim those off. Every year I get a couple of these cheap scissors at the grocery store, and they work great for trimming all the garlic. Then the next thing you want to do is I wear rubber gloves, like a little thin, cheap garden glove, because it gives you lots of grit. And I just run my thumb around, or my index finger around the root of the garlic. So it cleans the paper. And then just with my fingers, I brush downwards towards the stalk. That way you're not removing excess paper, and it should look like relatively clean. These were harvested when they were dirty, and it had rained the night before, so they're fairly muddy. So anyway, you just get that clean. This is people buying garlic from you, or they'll look at the bottom first. They want to make sure that that root is intact. There's no paper splits on the bottom. They're also looking at the number of cloves. This is a beautiful 4-clove garlic here. Nice big cloves on there. And then you want to look at the stalk. Now, if this had been sitting in a container for a week, like just sitting because they're ready to be bagged up, waiting to be used or whatever, you would look for a slip between the main stalk here, that white core, and the outer layers of paper. You can see the outer layers of paper there. You would look for a slippage of the paper coming off the stalk. You ever see that and you're buying expensive garlic from somebody, you might want to walk away. That means that they're trimming the garlic before they're cured, and I would suggest you never trim garlic before it's cured, properly cured, because you're opening a portal for molds and stuff to come in. A little test, I think I showed it before in another video, is when you fresh cut a garlic, you put the garlic thing to your lip, and your lip is extremely sensitive for nerves. And so if you're feeling like it's just like a piece of paper on your lip, then it's cured. This is garlic ready to be trimmed. If you're feeling a cool sensation, like I'm not saying wet, I'm just saying cool, a little cool sensation, that's possibly because your garlic is not cured. And the bigger they are, the longer it takes to cure them, to get them nice and dry inside so that they'll last. And the reason why we cure garlic is because we want it to last until next spring, right? These are actually seed garlic. These are so big, these cloves, that we'll sell most of them for seed garlic. There's more money in seed garlic. The larger the garlic, the more money you'll make if you're selling, because it takes fewer to make a pound. And if you're counting your dollars by X number of garlic per pound, you're going to make a lot more by selling by, if your garlic are big, when you're selling by pounds. So a couple of harvesting problems I wanted to show you that I found in the thing. This is a split garlic, okay? It's a lovely big garlic. We'll have a bit of a split on the bottom, okay? The paper has come off and then it's a big split. This simply means that the garlic has outgrown its paper. It's busted out of its paper. Maybe it's been too dry and it's been a very, very dry year. It also could be just left in the ground just a day or two too long. We typically harvest July 25th, but this year we harvested July 20th because half of the green was now turning brown. And in 2 days later, I mean, we harvest a lot of garlic, so it takes us a few days to get it out. In a couple of days can make a big difference. So the early garlic came out beautiful, just gorgeous. And a couple days later, we had far more splits in it. So unfortunate, you can use them for seed, but I find it very difficult to sell them. They just don't look very good, although they are perfectly safe to use for seed. Another problem is when they're pulled out of the ground and the stalk comes off them because you pull too hard. That happened to quite a few of them. Unfortunately, I can't sell them, but they can, if they're large, I can use them for seed. So the paper over the stalk pulled off, so the sheer force of it ripped the whole leaves and the stalk off the garlic bulb and then exposed all the cloves. Like, you know, pulling too hard without actually busting the top off, but you could still bust the paper off the bottom on one side. So excessive pulling, like if you're really struggling to get a garlic out of the ground, you should probably put a shovel under it and lift it, just so you don't damage the paper, because they render them unsellable. So what do you do with all these beautiful garlic, right? You have to use them for seed or something, or sell them at a huge discount. Another major problem that happens is you get shovel cuts. So when somebody is not putting their shovel down straight, so the garlic is sitting in the ground, you know, like this or whatever, and the shovel goes in, and so instead of the shovel going in underneath the garlic and lifting the garlic, the shovel is going in on the side and hitting the garlic like that, and then they're lifting, and then you have this horrible, ugly gouge. Good morning. It's October 14th, 13th. Monday, Thanksgiving weekend in Nova Scotia, Canada, and we're here to plant garlic. So it's garlic planting day.
We have 2 rows and 4 rows here, all prepped with 4 to 6 inches of compost on each, and our permanent walkways are already in place, and that's a polymulch and landscape pins. You can see we have a large bale of straw, and we'll use all of that on this. Here's Paul coming with a load of our organic fertilizers and the first bunch of garlic clove seeds. We also have a few yards piled here of some chicken manure, which we'll put on top.
So the first thing that we do is we lay down strings on the row that we're going to plant. I think we'll start up here, and yeah, I'll show you how that works. So we pop a stake in at the end here of the row, and then we have this nice thick twine that we put over the end of that in the center. You're going to try to center the string
up the row. And this is going to define the two sides for planting. There, stake on that end, nice and straight string. So in the tractor bucket, we have our 4 organic fertilizers. The first one is blood meal, and I fill this small bucket with the blood meal. Next is bone meal, and again, I'll fill a small bucket filled with that. The third thing would be potash, or it's a potassium source, and another bucket. And the final thing is lime powder. We have acidic clay soil, so lime powder is nice. Now, you can apply your lime liberally, although the wind seems to be moving quite a bit of it off, but you do apply that very generously. It's very inexpensive. We are now ready to plant our garlic seed. So the first thing you do is to grab your basket of cloves. We are going to plant 4 cloves on each side of the string line. We lay them out 1, 2, 3, 4, about that far apart, which is 6 to 8 inches. And the next row again is 6 to 8 inches apart. We do this all the way up the row. Later, we'll come back and push them in. Now we are ready to push the whole row, which is about 1,050 garlic cloves in this row, into the compost and soil. You pick up your clove and the pointy end is up and the round end is down. We push deeply into the soft soil as far as you can go. Once the garlic are buried, just take your hand and smooth the soil over them. Next, we're applying straw to the row in a thick layer. And it's pretty much on your hands and knees or bending over to evenly distribute it over the row until the row is completely covered. After the row has the straw mulch on it, you have to hold it down or the wind will just blow it off. So we affix landscape pins and nylon string in a crisscross fashion down the row. So, and then we put moderately heavy rocks on the string going up and down the row to hold the straw and the string in place. Lastly, the manure gets added to the top of the straw, and that kind of helps anchor everything into place for the winter. Here's a small clip that includes Paul. After all, he did have to work planting this garlic so he needs to be part of this video. So here we are. If you're interested in seeing a really cool video that's time-lapsed of us planting this whole row, you should go to our Facebook page for Hawthorne Hill Farm. Every few days, I harvest what's ripe or almost ripe in the tomato patch. These are Roma tomatoes. How I get them ready for making pasta sauce is I boil a large pot of water. Then, when it's boiled, I'll put that pot in the sink. I'll prick all of the tomatoes going into the pot with a knife and then drop them in one by one. I put the cover on and leave them for 20 to 30 minutes or so, just so I can handle them. When you go back to your tomatoes after this time, you will see that the skins are loose and they should come off easily. I'll cut out the cores with a sharp knife and put them in a colander. I let the tomatoes drain for a while. Then I'll put them in a large bowl and put them in the fridge overnight. And I'll make pasta sauce the next day. The next day, I started my batch of pasta sauce. I try to make 50 or 60 jars so that we can have pasta once a week. From the garden, I gathered a variety of vegetables, and I start with the celery. The next thing I cut up is some onions. The next few things I'll add will be a variety of peppers, some green ones and red ones, and some jalapenos, some zucchini, and garlic. I think that's it. And then we'll, once those are sauteed soft, that's the point that I'll add the tomatoes. And a couple tablespoons, if not 3, of chili powder. It really makes it warm, the sauce. It gives a warmness to chili powder. And cumin is another one that can make a dish seem warm. I like to add black pepper, and I also like to add the red pepper flakes. So I don't want my pasta sauce super, super hot, but I just want it to have a little bit of heat to it. There.
Now we'll just simmer that down nicely. So one day later, in this big bowl, I'll have some water off to the side, and I'll actually strain off a little bit of that water before I put it into the big pot with the veggies. Just try to be really careful and just let, it's probably only about a half to a cup of fluid. Okay. And I'll dump all the tomatoes in. And I put in 1 can of tomato paste. And I'm going to turn the heat down to low. I usually just add 1 small can of tomato paste into it, and it just gives it a little bit of a more intense tomato flavor. These are Roma tomatoes, and they are nice and meaty, that's for sure. There's not a whole lot of juice in them anyway, and there certainly are a big tomato. So I just love working with Romas and making sauce. So now we'll let the slow simmer start happening with the lid off. And that way you don't have steam collecting and making it more runny. And we'll just periodically stir it. Just make sure, check it, and make sure it's not sticking to the bottom of the pot. Now I've got to get my jars ready. So we've got some recently boiled water poured over that. So now the lids are all ready, and we're ready to pop it in our jars. Now tighten these with a rag. They're still pretty hot. And I'm going to get my big pot ready with some boiling water in it. And we'll give these guys a water bath